Hi everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of MRCAST, brought to you by Muhammad Riza & Co. My name is Jong Heng, and I'm excited to have Mr. Riza, the managing partner of Muhammad Riza & Co. For us today.
Thank you, Mew. I can call you Mew, right?
Yeah. Mew is good.
Okay.
So, Mr. Riza, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, I think maybe we should be talking about the topic first.
Yes.
Yeah?
So for our today's topic is AI and also the legal professions. So before we dive further into this topic, Mr. Riza, perhaps you can briefly introduce yourself to our audience.
What do you need to know about me?
So as far apart for the fact that you are a lawyer, maybe we want to know what's your expertise in terms of your legal practice.
Okay. So maybe some introduction. I suppose I graduated. What year were you born?
1998.
1998. So I graduated, before you were born.
Okay.
Okay, that was a long time ago. Law has been my natural progression for me. Since school, I've always been interested in refining my speaking skills and negotiating skills, and I read law, and I decided between litigation or corporate, and it so happened that when I first started my first practice, my first year of profession at the legal firm in Kuala Lumpur, there was a vacancy on corporate, and that was how I started, right? And the areas and skills that I've been involved is, I suppose, mostly corporate, mergers, acquisitions, financing, technology work, and apart from managing the firm, I also sit in the board of a few publicly listed companies in the banking industry, in the healthcare, and also in the real estate, and also in an arbitration. So that sort of give me, a balance and a mix of different areas of law.
Since you have involved in real estate and also healthcare industry, right, Mr. Riza, what are the key trends that you have observed in the past 10 years?
Okay, interesting question. I think when it comes to real estate, if you notice, back in when KLCC was first developed, there was a lot of developments within the KLCC. And then you've got all these real estate, high-rise condominiums being constructed. But as time moves by, you can see the latest trends has always been data center.
Right. AI and also data center.
Correct.
Right?
So there have been a lot of arguments and a lot of debate about whether data center is something very good for the country. All right? Because on one hand, they talk about employment. But when you talk about data center, you don't really need employees in a data center, right?
Correct.
So you've seen many companies, especially foreign companies, from the US and from China. That's very interesting for Malaysia, to actually want to invest in Malaysia, and that's a huge investment. Some are hyperscale type of data centers, and some are data centers where you have to require a lot of tenants, to fill up the data centers. And the question has always been, why Malaysia?
Yes.
I think one of the reasons Malaysia is chosen is because of the three main factors. One is, of course, water supply. We're able to provide that supply, electricity supply, and also we are not prone to earthquakes. So I think that's fairly important. So that's generally, in terms of data center. When it comes to healthcare,
right.
I sit in the board of a healthcare company. It's not just building hospitals. Now, when you talk about healthcare, we're talking a lot about digital healthcare.
Is it like AI or something?
Yes, it is. It is AI linked to AI, because when you see a doctor today, most of the time, in fact, all the time, the doctor will ask you to take tests. All right, tests using machines, and these machines will actually detect, right, there's anything wrong with you, and whether it's a blood test or whether it's an MRI machine or whether it's a CT scan machine. Now, these machines actually use artificial intelligence as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And most of the time, what doctors try to do now is to do in terms of preventive healthcare.
Preventive.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about data center and also healthcare industry, because I think our Malaysia is slowly becoming a healthcare tourism country recently. So when we talk about data center, there's always a concern there, especially when it comes to ESG, whether data center is really a ESG, is it fall under ESG concept in your opinion?
Okay, yes. Of course, when you construct a data center, there will be a lot of construction. You've got the earthworks, you know. So again, then that is where the role of the data center owners to ensure that in constructing a data center, you have to, shall I say, apply ESG elements in a data center. For example, the materials in building a data center, we need to ensure that it is also ESG compliant, using recyclable materials. Even when it comes to constructing the data center, when you do the earthworks, the building and filling up the earth and the materials, the contractors involved must also take this into account. And in addition to that, the electricity supply. Okay, because a lot of people argue data center uses a lot of electricity.
Yes.
Then is it ESG compliant? But don't forget, electricity need not necessarily come from coal supplied power generators.
Yes.
That's when we go into solar energy.
Yes.
And that's when we come into a lot of the Malaysian government has come a lot into ESG solar energy type of renewable energy, which can actually supply power to these data centers.
Right. So when we talk about AI, people always think about data center, semiconductor. So how would, with the rising of the AI technology, how would lawyer advise those clients in respect of AI transactions? Will it be more different as compared to those common commercial transactions?
Very different. That's why I find that I think it's very apt for the topic today, AI and the legal profession.
Correct.
Because I have been addressed this question many times about is AI going to take over the role of lawyers?
Okay.
I don't think so. Actually, for me, right, AI will actually make our job easier. It will make lawyers to be a bit more efficient, to ensure that we focus on the major part of a transaction. But at the same time, when we do a transaction involving an AI type of technology or AI type of transaction, be it fintech or even the acquisition of an AI equipment or the acquisition of a company using AI materials, you need to understand the technology.
So I think the technology is quite important for the lawyers to understand, before they enter the transactions.
Yeah. So, which means that, for example, you look at a contract, a technology contract is very different from a normal contract. So you need to understand what are the elements of a technology contract when you review them. And to do this, you need to work together with the technical guys and understand what are the key terms, what are the service elements required when you review this type of contracts.
Right. So I think because recently US President Donald Trump has just swearing into the United States.
Yep.
So with his recent swearing-in ceremony by the new US President Donald Trump, we can foresee that there's possible tariff to be announced by his administrations. So how will these announcements by Donald Trump be affecting the legal work of Malaysian lawyers?
A number of areas. I think Donald Trump has been very consistent in what he's doing as far as he's concerned, even during his first presidency. Being the president of the US, he will always look at the interests of the US, which is fine. And in looking at the interest of the US, he will say that impose tariffs, all right, for any products that is competing with US products. So I think that's the first thing, he's going to impose tariffs. So when he imposes tariffs, he ensures that the US products, they do not have to compete, all right, with the products of other countries. For example, EV cars.
Right.
He's going to impose tariffs on Chinese-made cars.
Correct.
I mean, that's a fact, all right? If you were to travel to Europe, you can't even see any Chinese EV cars. Again, because of the tariffs being enforced. As opposed to Malaysia, for example, where we are quite a fairly open market, and we even have tie-ups between the Chinese products and Malaysian products. I mean, that's the first thing. And because of that, you could have a change in terms of foreign investment policy. Many companies, many countries are actually looking at investing in other countries than US, for example. Or you could have a lot of Chinese companies actually investing in other countries within Southeast Asia, including Malaysia.
Right.
And that actually benefits Malaysia, because you just can't invest and rubber stamp a product made in Malaysia. You need to ensure that you use the products, the Malaysian products, the raw materials. You need to ensure you employ professionals in Malaysia.
Sure.
And in doing so, you will need to have lawyers, right? To shall I say, to advise,
Yeah.
to structure a transaction. So I think that's actually good. That's actually good for business and
Right.
good for lawyers, actually.
So I think that's how AI give more business to lawyers then.
Yes, and not to forget, Mio, cross-border is also another aspect. So it's not just Malaysian lawyers doing work relating to foreign investment, but it also provides Malaysian lawyers the opportunity to actually work in terms of cross-border transactions. They will be able to interact, with lawyers from another jurisdiction, and we can learn from each other.
I see. So like, in your experience as a corporate lawyer, is there any remarkable international deals that you have involved in before this?
Yeah, fairly quite a number of deals. I mean, I've always looked at Islamic finance, for example, where it's very global.
Right.
And Malaysia, to be fair, it's one of the leaders in Islamic finance. And because of that, I must thank because we are quite advanced in Islamic finance. I was able, to be involved in transactions in Brunei, one of the first Islamic capital markets deal, in Indonesia as well, involving an oil and gas company, where it is one of the first Islamic finance transaction in Indonesia. And also another transaction is in Singapore, where it's relating to an oil palm company using Islamic finance as a product as well.
See. So with the recent with the rising of AI technology, how could a lawyers be prepared for this kind of AI technology thing? Should they started to learn about AI, or what should they do?
Okay, I always like to look at the older generation in terms of embracing technology. Nowadays, if you were to go to a cafe, or even our own relatives or parents, you can see that they themselves are embracing technology.
Right, those iPhones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see they're using iPhones, iPad to watch Netflix.
correct.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
this is something which is not imaginable. So, as lawyers themselves, ourselves, we should embrace technology. For example, gone are the days where people bring volumes of paper in reviewing. All right. In the first place, printing paper is also not ESG compliant. We try to save the trees, so we try to virtually comment and add, and we've got that technology nowadays. Even in the boards that I sit in, I remember when I was in a board of a bank, that was 10-15 years ago. Volumes of paper whenever we want to have a board meeting, but now we have a board pack, and in that board pack, it gets downloaded immediately, and we can comment and we can share our comment with our other board members, which is fantastic. And it's all in the iPad. That's one. Secondly, when it comes to work, how we have changed in terms of using different types of software. For example, we don't have physical files anymore. We can have, for example, iManage, which is a virtual type of documentation. We have different systems like Core Matter, all right, where we can we can actually shall I say identify in terms of the time that you spend in your week, right? Even HR systems in terms of applying for leave, even virtual minute taking.
Right.
There's so many types of software, and some of these are free, and you really save time. So does it mean that you don't take minutes? You do, but you don't have to do the first draft.
Correct.
So let the machine do the virtual minute taking, and you can have the version of the verbatim, you can have the version of the summary, and then you as a person then look at it and refine it. And that saves a lot of time.
Yeah, as a lawyer, I think time management is very important.
Yep.
With this AI, I feel like that's definitely something we lawyers should look for.
Exactly.
So like for AI, I mean, as we have spoken during this topic, what are the cons for a lawyer? What about the cons of AI towards a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, there's always two sides to a coin. The cons is, it's like using a precedent. All right. Now, AI technology is developing to an extent that, for example, if you were to use what's that Office 365 that they normally
Copilot?
use?
Is it Copilot?
Sorry?
Is it Copilot?
Copilot,
Yeah.
correct. You're right. Copilot. Copilot actually is able to develop documentation. First drafts, second drafts. So I think the cons for a lawyer is, if the lawyer doesn't understand the concept of that precedent and relies on it, then it will be a danger to the lawyer.
Harm your client interest,
yes, harm your client's interest, because the lawyer will not be able to edit or work with that first draft. So that's why it's important. That's one of the cons, I would say, for AI. Number one, and number two is relying too much on the AI, because if you look at some of the minute taking, it's not actually entirely accurate.
Right, because it's still AI still.
It's still AI, and especially for Malaysians, sometimes when we have meetings, we speak English, sometimes we speak Bahasa, right? So these are the things that the machine may not be able to take. It may not be able to adapt, and that's another reason. And sometimes the facts may not be entirely accurate. So that's why I think you need that human touch.
Still need a lawyer.
Yeah, you need a lawyer, because as professionals, we cannot even afford a single mistake.
Right.
Especially when it comes to the clients.
Okay, so that's interesting, because as a lawyer, I feel like we shouldn't avoid AI at all costs. In fact, we have to, to utilize AI in a better way.
Yeah.
For our client interest, definitely.
How do you find? I mean, let me ask you instead. I mean, I'm sure you've been utilizing
AI.
Yeah,
I use AI. I have first tried the minute taking AI technology. It's quite efficient, but still, as a lawyer, don't rely on AI exactly. I mean, you can't rely on AI.
But I'm sure it saves you time.
It saves my time, indeed.
A lot of time.
Yep. But still require the lawyer's mindset to overlook all these meeting notes. Yeah. So, in facing AI technologies, when you speak about you can't rely on AI exactly. So what are the legal skills that a lawyer should have when they're using the AI technology? Should they be more, be more expertise? Because you can't really have zero knowledge while using AI. You must have some basic of law.
Yep.
For example, when you want to draft a contract, you can't use AI at all. You have to have a basic of law, I would say, right?
Yeah, you would. I mean, this is the advice that I normally give to students. Sometimes I've been asked to provide talks to university students, law students. I always say that when you're a law student, what you learn in university and what you actually learn in practice are two different things. As a practicing lawyer, you need to implement what you've learned in university. But when you implement what you've learned, it is not necessarily 100% law. I would say 70% would be the law, but 30% is still common sense. And that common sense comes from your experience in life, and of course thinking outside the box, and having that general knowledge, right? So when you include AI into this whole subset of things, it makes it a bit more complicated, but the knowledge and the strength of the law is still required in order for you to make AI complementary,
Right.
to your work. So, for example, in terms of drafting a simple maybe acquisition of assets, right? You would have all these documents as well as part of your due diligence, and maybe you can use some of these AI tools in your due diligence work. But you need to understand the transaction, right? So the deliverables of these AI tools, you'll need to review them, because to ensure that they are in accordance to what you want in the transaction, and then you have to apply the law, in structuring the transaction and in drafting the agreements according to your client's requirements.
Right. I think different clients have different perspective when it comes to different dealings,
Yep.
right? Yep. So speaking about dealing with clients and also to meet with the client expectations, so how would a lawyer assist clients, I would say foreign clients, how do lawyers assist those foreign clients that who is very unfamiliar with the Malaysian legal system? Like, what's the legal, how lawyer would help those clients?
Okay, for me, so I think we're talking about a lot of let's say work coming to invest in Malaysia, right? And you have foreign clients who needs your assistance. Most of the time, I think you need to also understand the culture of the foreign client, the jurisdiction. Because, for example, when I were to deal with a European or an American client, it's different when I were to deal with an Asian client. So, for example, for a Chinese client from China, they operate in a very competitive landscape.
Okay.
So there's a certain expectation that you need to give them some information without charging them.
Okay.
That's the expectation of Chinese clients, because in China, that's how the law firms work. And I've learned this because the firm that I'm in, we are part of an international network, and we work very closely with our Chinese counterparts. So that actually helps in terms of gauging, in terms of what type of advice we need to give to them, what type of expectation, and when it comes to cross border as well, even if we were to to represent a Malaysian client abroad, I normally work with our counterpart, our part of our international network counterpart, because that would actually give us some insight in terms of the local requirements and local needs.
I see. So your counterpart that you mentioned just now, is it referring to any specific organization?
Yeah, Lowell. So we are part of Lowell. So so we've got regions, and Lowell is a membership of about 75 countries. So it really helps us in terms of doing cross-border deals, going abroad, and also it helps our counterpart when their clients wants to invest in Malaysia. So that's really helpful, and it's a facilitating. So if we were to invest abroad, the clients just deal with us. And the same vice versa, when their client wants to invest in Malaysia, their client just have to deal with them, and we will just assist the particular our colleague abroad, to understand and to structure the deal.
I see. So because between foreign clients and local clients, right, I feel like there's a different perspective on the AI technology. So I feel like as of now, the local clients are still not prefer using AI when they are doing transactions.
Right.
What about the foreign expectation on the AI? Would it be different?
Maybe you can specify what type when you mean say by AI.
So I feel like mostly local clients still trying to avoid using AI because there are some privacy concerns, or it's not how do we say that it's not within the community expectation. They feel like, AI is not something that we should use, but instead, we should do everything by ourselves, by the lawyer itself.
Understand. You see, most of the time, right? Clients, from my experience, they really don't care as to how you deliver. Okay, but as lawyers, sometimes, like you correctly mentioned, sometimes we need to be transparent. In telling them that when you use some of these AI tools, you need to share these documents in a software, in a platform.
Like a meeting note, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So what the lawyers need to do is to give comfort to the clients that this platform is a secured platform.
Secure platform.
And most of these AI tools, so which is also important, that you need to pick your AI tools. You just can't simply take any particular AI tools.
Right.
If you were to use on Microsoft Azure, for example, it's a very secure platform. And I've actually tested this with auditors, because sometimes, when the firm is a panel in one of these international banks, you are actually being audited.
Okay.
And we've gone through this audit, and we have passed this audit. So to show that even from the audit point of view, they are comfortable with the platform that is being used. So as far as international clients are concerned, I think it depends on the country, right? I think the US is quite far advanced.
Right.
Europeans, it depends on the particular country, because you have some European countries which are quite far advanced. China is very advanced because they've got their own tools as well, But as far as they're concerned, it's the deliverables, and explain to them and be transparent to them in terms of the sharing of documentation. Because remember PDPA?
PDPA, yes.
PDPA is another issue because it's very cross-border. Because Malaysian PDPA is very banked on GDPR, the European GDPR. So we have also a lot of deals where our foreign clients, which are from Europe, engages us, but they want us to explain what is PDPA as compared to the GDPR. So you need to have some knowledge of that as well. So that's really helpful in bridging the gap.
So that's quite interesting because I think so far the Malaysian community is unable to accept how AI assisting lawyers in doing their work. But maybe this is something interesting for them to consider.
They should. So
when you talk about AI, since we have talked so much about AI, do you think one day, there's gonna be no works for lawyers, but just AI being the lawyer themselves? Will it be possible in your opinion?
I've always, you've watched the Terminator, right?
Yes.
Where machines take over the world. Actually, no one can predict the future. I mean, I remember in the 1990s, it was email.
Okay.
That was when I first started practice. And when email first started, it was first a general email. And then everybody started to have their own email addresses.
Right.
And then 20 years, 25 years down the line, now we're talking about AI. 10 years' time, we don't know. As it is now, we always must remember things are evolving. So AI is also evolving. They are also becoming smarter.
Right.
So the question is, are we able to withstand the smartness of the AI? So the only way I look at it, right, is we too, human beings, we too need to evolve and work with machines to make us more efficient and learn new things. I mean, in the past, when we first legal practice, you had all these law journals, hard copies, but now everything is online.
It's
right?
E-copy, right?
And then we have new areas of law, technology, telecommunications, cyber security, fintech. So we too continue to evolve, and we use AI to learn faster. And that's how I see it. So I don't see it as a threat. I see it as something which is useful, and we can use it to be more efficient.
I see. That's quite interesting. So, I think now lawyers has facing a lot of challenges. Apart from AI, there are some challenges in terms of apart from AI, I think there are some other challenges currently facing by the lawyer, right? Were you able to share with us what are the most common challenges that facing by the Malaysian lawyers?
Maybe you should tell me. You're a lawyer as well, right? Maybe it's time for you to tell me what are the challenges that you are facing as a lawyer.
Challenges that facing by a Malaysian lawyer is, I would say maybe undercutting. Is it a problem to Malaysian lawyers?
Actually, good point that you mentioned. I think in Malaysia, that's the funny part. We've got the Bar Council, and they've been very active in ensuring that we've got this solicitor's remuneration order, which is following the rules. But unfortunately, there's been a lot of undercutting amongst law firms, and this is very worrying. So when you start to undercut, you could also undercut quality.
Correct.
And this is despite several warnings by the Bar Council in terms of your PI cover. So I hope the industry will look at it, because you should be getting the work based on your expertise and the quality of work that you provide, and not because you are cheaper. When we start to do that, we are actually losing a lot of fought, especially when it comes to our foreign counterparts, which are charging much higher, and that is actually not good for the legal profession.
So, a separate question: how much would the foreign counterpart charge you?
Now, first they'll charge you in USD, and sometimes it's 2 or 3 times more, and it's kind of disheartening when you do a transaction and you realize that your counterpart is charging much more for half the amount of work that you're doing.
Right.
Then you realize something is wrong.
Well, that's interesting topic, because I never could foresee, there's so many underlying concerns for this undercutting issue. Is there anything that you want to share?
I think that's about it. I think, I hope that I've been able to give you some insight in terms of AI
and the legal
professions.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Riza, for joining our very first podcast, MRCAST, and perhaps do you have any last message or final thoughts to share with the audience?
Yeah, I suppose just to conclude, I think as lawyers, I think we have to continue to evolve. Things move. We need to move. Learn as much as you can. Sometimes I always say, the more I know, the more I don't know. I think that sort of drives me, to learn as much as I can in any area or any topic, not necessarily legal, but other industries as well.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Riza. Again, I thank all the listeners and the audience for tuning in into MRCAST today. So maybe we can wish to the audience, 恭喜发财,
恭喜发财, Happy Chinese New Year.
Yeah, 新年快乐. See you soon all. Bye.
Bye.